Wow. It's almost like, a little while ago, we were all impressed by AI that could just about, like, grasp a few paragraphs, right? And now it feels like every week something huge is dropping.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, to be honest. And I think what's so fascinating about this moment in time with AI is that, we're really starting to see the practical horizons of what AI can do expanding so rapidly.
Absolutely. And to help us make sense of it all, we've been, really digging into this latest newsletter, Beyond the Code with Prateek.
Yeah.
Really smart guy, always has some good insights. And so today we're going to be looking at 3 really significant shifts happening right now in the AI landscape. That's Microsoft AutoGen, we've got Google Firebase Fullstack Studio, and then the potential game changer, the context window of Llama 4.
Absolutely.
So our goal today is straightforward. We're going to give you a clear understanding of what these innovations are and, more importantly, what they mean for you and how you can stay ahead in this incredibly dynamic field. So let's dive right into it. Let's start with Microsoft AutoGen. Can you just give us like a high-level overview of what is at the heart of AutoGen?
Sure. So at its core, Microsoft AutoGen is an open source framework. So think of it as a versatile toolkit that empowers both developers and researchers to construct AI systems that are composed of multiple, you can think of them as intelligent agents. And these agents are designed to collaborate and communicate with each other through conversation to, solve complex tasks.
So it's not just one single AI. It's like we're building a team now of these specialized AIs.
Exactly. It's this idea that if we have multiple agents working together, each of them possessing unique capabilities and they're able to communicate and collaborate, then we can, achieve much more sophisticated outcomes than might be possible with a single, all-encompassing model. And so the overall aim here is to really accelerate the development and experimentation of these, agent-based AI applications.
I can already see, like, my mind is kind of racing with some of the possibilities here. What are some of the key features that make AutoGen tick?
Yeah, so there are several important aspects of AutoGen. First of all, there's the core multi-agent conversation framework itself. This allows you to define different, conversational structures. So, for example, this could be a simple dialogue between 2 agents, or it could be a more intricate group discussion where multiple agents are, participating. And then the next, big feature is that these agents are highly customizable. They're not limited to just using, large language models. You can also integrate them with external tools. You can even incorporate, human input into their workflows, which is really important for, real world applications where you might want human oversight.
It's interesting you say that because one of the things that was always a concern for me was, you have this AI doing its thing, but how do you make sure that it's still aligned with, human values and goals?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, the fact that we can have that human in the loop is really important for those kinds of applications. The framework is also designed to have a lot of programming flexibility.
Okay.
So you can define how these agents interact using both natural language instructions, but also, traditional code, which gives
Yeah.
you a lot of versatility in how you design these systems. And then finally, Microsoft has provided some really useful developer resources. So they have AutoGen Studio, which offers this kind of more visual no-code approach to prototyping these multi-agent systems.
Wow, a no-code approach. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and then they also have AutoGen Bench, which allows you to systematically evaluate the performance of these systems.
Okay, very cool. Now, I know that the newsletter highlighted some specific use cases. What are some real-world problems that people are applying this to?
Right, so the research paper that Prateek highlights is called AutoGen, enabling next-gen LLM applications via multi-agent conversation. And they explore a very diverse range of applications. So this includes, being able to tackle intricate mathematical problems, generating and debugging complex code, answering multifaceted questions, and even, going into fields like operations research, online decision-making, and even, surprisingly, entertainment.
Entertainment. That's kind of a curveball.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought of that one.
Yeah.
Can you give us a concrete example of how it might be used in something like entertainment?
Yeah. So one specific example is a multi-agent team that they built called Magentic One. And so Magentic One is able to do things like browse the web to gather information, execute code to perform some analysis, and it can even manage files. So you can imagine using this to create, more dynamic and responsive characters in video games, or being able to generate interactive storytelling experiences that are able to respond to user input in sophisticated ways.
It's so interesting to see how this could be applied in so many different areas that we traditionally wouldn't think of. So for our listeners who are intrigued and want to explore AutoGen further, what are some good starting points?
Yeah. So the newsletter highlights a couple of key resources. First of all, there's the GitHub repository under Microsoft AutoGen. This is the central hub. You'll find all of the underlying code there, as well as a wealth of practical examples to get you started. And then they also have a very active community, so you can participate in their weekly office hours or join their Discord chat to, connect with other users and developers. There's also the official AutoGen documentation, which offers very comprehensive guides and beginner-friendly tutorials. And then finally, for those of you who are really interested in digging into the technical details, the research paper on ArcSiv is a great resource for that.
Perfect. So we've got something for every level of technical expertise there.
Yeah.
What would be like your top actionable advice for someone who is, maybe hearing this for the first time and is just really eager to start experimenting?
Yeah. So I would say start with the documentation. Get a good grasp of, the fundamental concepts, and maybe try building a very simple multi-agent application, even something with just 2 agents interacting.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to join the Discord community. It's a very valuable resource. You can get support, you can see what kind of projects other people are working on. And then, especially if you're new to coding multi-agent systems, I would definitely encourage you to explore AutoGen Studio for that visual prototyping environment, because it can really accelerate, your understanding of how these agents communicate and collaborate.
Fantastic. Okay, now let's shift gears and talk about Google's latest offering, Firebase Fullstack Studio. This sounds like a major step towards making AI app development a lot easier. What's the big idea here?
Yeah. So Google Firebase Fullstack Studio was just announced this month, actually, in April 2025. And it's a brand new browser-based development environment.
Yeah.
What makes it so special is that it's powered by Google's Gemini AI. And it brings together a number of existing Google tools, so things like Project IDX and GenKit, into a single, unified workspace. And so the overall goal here is really to empower developers to rapidly build, test, and deploy complete production-ready AI applications.
So essentially we're talking about like an entire AI app development suite right there in your browser.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really designed to take away a lot of the complexity and the friction that's often associated with the development process by providing, these integrated tools and this intelligent AI assistance.
So what are some of the features of Firebase Fullstack Studio that stand out?
Yeah. So one of the most compelling features, I think, is the AI-powered prototyping capability.
Okay.
So they have this app prototyping agent that's powered by Gemini, and you can actually generate functional application prototypes just by describing what you have in mind using natural language.
Oh.
You can even provide images or sketches, and it's able to generate these prototypes. It also includes built-in support for popular frameworks like Next.js.
So I'm literally describing what I want, and the AI is going to build the app for me.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can imagine this really speeding up that initial phase of development, that prototyping phase.
Yeah.
Then in addition to that, there's an integrated IDE, which is built on Code OSS. So it's going to feel very familiar to anyone who's used VS Code before. And it even supports a wide range of VS Code extensions from the OpenVSX registry. Plus, it offers a high degree of customization using Next.
Okay.
It also provides really comprehensive end-to-end deployment capabilities. So this includes built-in emulators so that you can test your application across different environments,
Right.
integrated testing frameworks, and it seamlessly integrates with other core Firebase services like authentication for user management, Firestore for your database needs, and app hosting for easy deployment. And of course, throughout the entire development lifecycle, Gemini AI is there to assist with tasks like coding, debugging, and even automatically generating documentation.
Wow, it sounds like Google is pulling out all the stops here to really streamline everything.
Yeah, they really want to make the entire journey of building and deploying these AI-powered apps as smooth as possible.
Who would you say is like the ideal user for something like Firebase Fullstack Studio?
Yeah. So it seems particularly well suited for, developers who are looking to rapidly prototype and iterate on, new AI-powered features,
Right.
as well as teams that are looking to, migrate their existing projects to the cloud and maybe leverage AI capabilities more deeply. The fact that it supports such a wide variety of programming languages and frameworks makes it really versatile. And I think it could be, really valuable for startups that are, trying to move quickly from idea to deployment, as well as large organizations that want to, accelerate the development of AI-driven, web, mobile, and back-end applications.
So if somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, hey, this sounds great, I want to learn more, what are some good places to start?
Yeah, so the official documentation at the Firebase Studio website is really the place
Mm.
to start. It covers everything from, setting up, getting started to more detailed explanations of, how the AI assistance features work and how you can customize your development environment. The Google Cloud blog also has a blog post announcing the launch, which gives a pretty good high-level overview of its capabilities. And then there's actually a really good YouTube video that Prateek highlights that kind of showcases its AI capabilities in action. So if you prefer a more visual introduction, I would definitely recommend checking that out.
So we've got tons of resources for our listeners to check out. What are some specific steps somebody could take to, really get hands-on and start exploring what Firebase Fullstack Studio is all about?
Yeah, so I would encourage you to sign up for the preview program at the Firebase Studio website. They offer a certain number of free workspaces so you can get started and experiment. And you can usually upgrade your resources through the Google Developer Program.
Okay.
Definitely take some time to play around with the app prototyping agent. Try describing a simple web application in natural language and see what Gemini generates. It's a really fantastic way to just quickly validate ideas and understand the potential of the platform. And then, if you have existing code repositories on, GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, try importing those into the studio and see how it integrates with your current development workflows.
Awesome. Okay, let's move on to our final topic for today, which is Llama 4. And there's this really interesting discussion around, this whole idea of retrieval augmented generation, or what we call RAG.
Yeah.
And it seems like Meta's latest model has some pretty big implications in this area.
It really does. So Llama 4, which Meta released this month as well, marks a really significant advancement, particularly in the size of its context window.
Yeah, I was reading about that. It's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, so they've introduced models like Llama 4 Scout, which has an astounding 10 million token context window. And then they also have Llama 4 Maverick, which has a 1 million token window, which is still extremely large.
Right.
But that's a massive leap in the amount of information that these models can process at once.
10 million tokens. I mean, that's just an incredible amount of information. For those of our listeners who might not be as familiar, can you just, really quickly explain what a larger context window actually enables for an LLM?
Sure. So basically, the context window is the amount of textual information that an LLM can take into account when generating a response.
Okay.
So you can think of it like the model's working memory. And so a larger context window means that the model can process and understand much longer pieces of text. We're talking whole books, we're talking lengthy research papers, all in a single pass.
Wow.
And Llama 4 also uses this mixture of experts, or MOE architecture, which allows for greater efficiency and scalability.
Okay.
And it natively supports multimodal inputs, so it can understand both text and images,
Gotcha.
as well as multimodal outputs, so it can generate both text and code.
So it's not just it can remember more, but it can also understand different kinds of data.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so let's get into this debate. Why is Llama 4's massive context window size raising questions about the future of RAG?
Right. So the core of this discussion really centers around whether or not this expansive context window could potentially diminish the need for RAG.
Okay.
And just as a quick reminder for our listeners, RJ, or Retrieval Augmented Generation, is a technique that we use to enhance LLMs by retrieving relevant information from external knowledge sources.
Right.
So this could be, a specific document, it could be a database, and we feed that information into the model's, more limited context window. And we typically do this because, even the largest LLMs have, a finite capacity to recall or access very specific, up-to-date information that wasn't part of their original training data.
Right. So we're basically supplementing what the LLM knows with more current information or even domain-specific information.
Exactly.
Okay. So what is the argument for Llama 4 potentially reducing our reliance on RAG?
Right. So the reduced need for retrieval argument basically goes like this. With a 10 million token context,
Yeah.
Llama 4 Scout can essentially hold, the equivalent of multiple large books in its working memory. And so what this opens up is the possibility of, significantly simplifying workflows.
Yeah.
So for example, if you're trying to summarize a very long document or you're performing some in-depth analysis on a large volume of, static information,
Yeah.
instead of needing a separate RAG pipeline to first fetch the relevant snippets, the model could potentially just process the whole document directly.
That makes sense. If you've got the whole thing in memory, why do you need to go fetch specific parts?
Right. Exactly. And Prateek even highlights, discussions on Hacker News where this very prospect is being actively debated.
Yeah, I've seen those threads too.
Yeah, very interesting.
Okay. But I know there's also the argument that RAG might still have an important role to play. So what's the counter argument there?
Yeah, so there are a couple of key reasons why RAG is likely to remain relevant.
Okay.
One potential challenge with extremely long contexts is the possibility of performance degradation. So as the model is trying to process, an increasingly large amount of information, it might become, harder for it to pinpoint the most relevant parts for a given query.
Right.
And so, there's this potential trade-off between having a larger context window and maintaining that level of performance.
Okay.
Additionally, RAG remains incredibly valuable for dealing with information that is constantly changing or needs to be accessed in real time.
Right.
So even with a massive context window, it's just not feasible to, continuously feed the entire dynamic web into the model.
That's a good point.
And so RAG allows us to kind of selectively retrieve the most, up-to-date and relevant data for a given user's needs. And Prateek aptly highlights some insights from, community discussions on platforms like Reddit, where folks are also underscoring this ongoing need for targeted information retrieval.
So it sounds like maybe it's not a question of Llama 4 replacing RGI altogether, but maybe it's more a question of changing how and when we use R.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, that's a good distinction. Now, for those who want to dive deeper into Llama 4, what are some good resources?
Yeah, so the official Llama 4 model card is a really indispensable resource. It provides, very detailed technical specs, benchmarks on different tasks, information about the training data and the methodology. There's the GitHub repository under MetaLlama, which contains all the inference code that you need to run the models. It also has a lot of community contributed scripts and tools. And then, as always, I think actively following the community discussions on, platforms like X or formerly Twitter and forums like Hacker News can really provide valuable insights into how these models are being used in the wild and the real world challenges and successes that people are seeing.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So for our listeners who want to get hands-on, experiment, play around with Llama 4, what are some practical steps?
Yeah, so I would recommend, given this, impressive 10 million token context of Llama 4 Scout, try experimenting with it on platforms like Grok Cloud, which is known for its, fast inference speeds.
Okay.
Try feeding it, very long documents, maybe combine multiple documents, see how it performs on tasks like summarization or answering specific questions.
Right.
And, as you do that, pay attention to whether or not you see any performance trade-off as you increase the context length.
Right. See if there's a limit.
Right, exactly.
That starts to degrade.
Yeah. And it would also be, a good exercise to actually compare, traditional RG-based methods with Llama 4's ability to handle, large contexts directly for certain tasks, maybe for a specific data set you have, and really evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of each approach. And as always, just keep an eye on the ongoing discussions because things are moving very quickly.
So lots to keep up with here. I'm curious, from your perspective, we've looked at, the collaborative potential of AI agents with AutoGen. We've looked at streamlined development with Google's Firebase Fullstack Studio, and now these massive context windows with Llama 4. Do you feel like we're at like an inflection point in how we build and interact with AI?
I think so. It really feels like, these developments have the potential to really influence the way we approach problems, the way we build solutions, and ultimately the way we, kind of interact with AI in the future. And so staying informed and really understanding the capabilities and implications of these tools is really critical.
And with that in mind, here's a final thought for our listeners. As you're, thinking about these three very different advancements, um, the collaborative AI agents, the rapid development environment, and these massive context windows, which of these do you think is going to have the most immediate and substantial impact on, your work, the things you're interested in, the problems you're trying to solve?
Right.
And, take some time to explore some of these resources, start to form your own opinions, maybe even get hands-on, start experimenting. Because, the AI landscape is evolving at an incredible pace. And the best way to understand it is to really dive in and, uh, and experience it yourself.
I totally agree.
All right, well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time.
Thanks for having me.